Q.47 What is the difference between dialectical idealism and dialectical materialism? Introduction. Understanding the dialectical method. The concept of dialectics refers to a method of reasoning and interpretation that explains the process of change through conflict and contradiction. It assumes that progress occurs when opposing forces, thesis and antithesis, interact to produce a new synthesis. Both dialectical idealism and dialectical materialism employ this method, but they differ fundamentally in what they see as the driving force of change: ideas in idealism and material conditions in materialism. While G.W.F. Hegel developed the concept of dialectical idealism, Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels reinterpreted it as dialectical materialism, replacing Hegel's focus on ideas with a focus on material realities. Dialectical idealism. Hegel's philosophy. Dialectical idealism, formulated by Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, 17701831, rests on the belief that ideas, consciousness, or the human mind are the primary reality and the source of all change in the world. For Hegel, the universe is the unfolding of the absolute spirit, or idea, through a dialectical process, an ongoing movement from thesis-antithesis-synthesis. Each stage of this triadic process represents a higher and more comprehensive level of truth. Hegel believed that reality itself is rational, and history is the progressive realization of freedom and reason through the evolution of human consciousness. Example. In Hegel's view, political institutions, like the state, emerge as expressions of the evolving human spirit. Ideas of justice and freedom shape society, not the other way around. Thus, in dialectical idealism, ideas determine material reality. Dialectical materialism, Marx's reinterpretation. Karl Marx, 1818–1883, adopted Hegel's dialectical method but rejected his idealism. Marx turned Hegel's philosophy upside down, arguing that it is material conditions, not ideas, that shape human history. Hence, Marx's theory is known as dialectical materialism, where matter, economic forces, and productive relations are the real basis of all social and historical change. Marx asserted that human consciousness is shaped by material life. It is not the consciousness of men that determines their existence, but their social existence that determines their consciousness. According to Marx, society progresses through contradictions between productive forces, means of production, and relations of production, ownership structures, leading to class struggles. This dialectical conflict ultimately transforms one economic system into another, for example, feudalism, capitalism, socialism. Thus, for Marx, material reality determines ideas, reversing Hegel's order. Detailed comparison between dialectical idealism and dialectical materialism. 1. Basic premise. Dialectical idealism emphasizes the primacy of ideas, mind, and spirit. Dialectical materialism emphasizes the primacy of matter and material conditions. In Hegel's view, mind creates matter. In Marx, matter creates mind. 2. Nature of reality. Hegel believed that reality is essentially spiritual and that the material world is merely the manifestation of the evolving absolute idea. Marx believed that reality is material. Everything, including consciousness, arises from material existence and economic structures. 3. Source of change. In Hegelian dialectics, change occurs through the conflict of ideas. Opposing notions of truth and morality lead to higher synthesis. In Marxian dialectics, change arises from material contradictions economic conflicts between classes drive historical transformation. 4. Direction of causality, Hegel, Ideas, Society, Economy. Marx, Economy, Society, Ideas. Hegel's causality flows from the ideal to the real, while Marx flows from the real to the ideal. 5. Role of human consciousness. Hegel viewed consciousness as the creator of history. Humans transform the world through rational thought. Marx viewed consciousness as the product of material conditions. People's thinking reflects their social and economic position. 6. Interpretation of history. For Hegel, history is the evolution of the human spirit toward freedom and self-awareness. For Marx, history is the history of class struggles arising from material inequalities and ownership conflicts. 7. Role of the state. In Hegel's idealism, the state is the highest expression of ethical life, the realization of freedom and reason in institutional form. In Marx's materialism, the state is a tool of class domination, serving the interests of the ruling economic class. 8. Teleological goal. Hegel's dialectic moves toward the realization of the absolute spirit, a philosophical and spiritual culmination. Marx's dialectic moves toward the classless, communist society, a material and social culmination. 9. Method of dialectics. Same process, different content. Both Hegel and Marx use the dialectical process of thesis, antithesis, synthesis, but apply it differently. For Hegel, these are ideological contradictions. For Marx, they are material and economic contradictions. Example: Hegel, conflict of ideas of monarchy and democracy leads to the idea of constitutional government. Marx, conflict between capitalists and workers leads to socialism. 10. Nature of progress. Hegel's progress is spiritual and intellectual, aimed at self-realization of reason. Marx's progress is material and economic, aimed at liberation from class exploitation. Illustrative example. Under Hegel's dialectical idealism, the French Revolution was the result of the ideological conflict between the ideas of monarchy, thesis, and liberty, antithesis, producing the idea of constitutional democracy, synthesis. Under Marx's dialectical materialism, the same event resulted from economic and class conflict between the feudal aristocracy and the emerging bourgeoisie, leading to a new capitalist order. This example shows how both theories interpret the same historical event differently, one in terms of ideas, the other in terms of material forces. Critical evaluation. Dialectical idealism provided a philosophical explanation for the evolution of ideas and reason, but it was too abstract and detached from material life. Marx's dialectical materialism gave the dialectical method scientific and social grounding, connecting it to economic realities. However, critics of Marx argue that his emphasis on materialism neglects the role of ideas, culture, and morality, which also shape human progress. Thus, both perspectives are interrelated. Hegel explains how ideas evolve, while Marx explains why societies change. Summary for quick understanding. Dialectical idealism. Hegel, reality and progress arise from the conflict of ideas. Dialectical materialism. Marx, reality and progress arise from the conflict of material forces and class relations. Hegel's dialectic is spiritual, Marx is economic. Both use the dialectical method but apply it to different realms of human existence, Hegel to thought, Marx to society. Quick revision notes. Hegel, dialectical idealism. Idea is real, matter is its manifestation. Marx' dialectical materialism, matter is real, ideas reflect it. Hegel, history of ideas and spirit. Marx' history of class struggles. Hegel, ideal determines real. Marx, real determines ideal. Hegel, state as moral perfection. Marx, state as class instrument. Common ground, both see change through contradictions. One-line questions and answers for revision. 1. Who propounded dialectical idealism? G.W.F. Hegel. 2. Who propounded dialectical materialism? Karl Marx. 3. What is the key difference between them? Idealism focuses on ideas, materialism focuses on material conditions. 4. What is the driving force of history in Hegel's theory? The evolution of ideas or spirit. 5. What is the driving force of history in Marx's theory? Economic and class conflict. 6. What is the method both share? Dialectical process, thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. 7. How does Marx modify Hegel? He reverses Hegel's idealism into materialism. 8. What is Hegel's final goal of history? Realization of absolute spirit. 9. What is Marx's final goal of history? Establishment of a classless, communist society. 10. What is the nature of change in Marx's dialectic? Material, revolutionary, and historical. Final connection. Dialectical idealism explains human progress as the unfolding of thought ideas shaping reality. Dialectical materialism reverses this, reality shaping ideas through economic and social forces. Hegel gave dialectics its logical structure, Marx gave it social content. Together, they mark a profound evolution in human thought, from the ideal interpretation of history to its material and scientific understanding, bridging philosophy with social reality.